Today is July 19, 2024. We are visiting with Cara Page, Alexander Lestinghoff Mandregan, and we have Hannah Zimmerman, Kyla Freitas, Shay Lestinghoff, Stanley Kotrick, Julia Melavida, Julia Merculia, Garrett Pletnikoff, myself, Aquilina Lestinghoff, Janelle Baker, and I don't know if Lisa pops in or Platinita. We have George Pletnikoff and Platvita Hapoff that might chime in. And may we record you?
Yes.
Okay.
Huh.
Take it away.
Okay.
And it's up to you if you want. But okay, so maybe Cara, like if while you're cutting, you don't want to stop. The meat's got to be done first before the talk. But if you're, whatever you want to say about the ever so wonderful bossy grandma, have at it.
Well, she's, the sole reason that I've ever consumed it and took interest in it. Growing up in a home where my mother did not cook, prepare, touch, or anything with our seal, reindeer. She'll do halibut, but that's it. So I sought it out. That's what I was just telling someone this morning, was it wasn't something I grew up with. It was something I sought out. It was something that I thought was interesting. Had no idea the tie to my, history or anything at the time. It was just, this is something exciting that I want to go do. So seal harvest, I found a way to get there when I was a kid. I either went with you at some point as a child, or I followed Aaron down and hopped in someone's vehicle and got a ride out to the harvest. And being a kid, the attraction is the blood and warming up with the blood and touching it and getting filthy, basically. Not, thinking of any cultural significance at the time. Not thinking about, the respect to the animal at the time, for sure, was not something I was aware of until later times being taught. And I also didn't know how to handle it properly until I was about maybe 14 or 15. And it was also starting here. I was given a knife by my aunt, Aquilina, gifted a knife, and I was told to go out there and ask someone what to do and figure it out. So super grateful for that. I still have the knife to this day that I was gifted. And I went up to basically all the seasoned harvesters and said, can you show me what to do? Can you tell me what to do? And learn from there. And of course, so my grandmother cooked it for me, and I didn't realize until I was older in my, my later teen years that she was there at the harvest getting her own seals, and she was there standing at a truck waiting for someone to bring it to her at this point, and is where she took over and cut it up and separated it for bagging and consumption in her home. So she did that all the way up until the year that she died. So to, be proud to be like, my rough and tough grandmother did this, I can do it too. And she wouldn't ask for help. She would do it by herself. She wouldn't let me help her other than throwing stuff away for her. And even at, 89 years old, I think, 89, I can't remember, she was cracking the ribs in half. So I think of that whenever I do this. So she taught me how to cut it down for cooking. She also taught me how to cook it, but I was also a young, naive adult. I was 18 or 19 years old, and I also didn't really closely pay attention to the significance of absorbing it. One of the days we were cooking was the day that we found out our cat got killed, and we were at the rec hall, and I was just emotional with my family. We were sitting in the rec hall, and she was showing us how to cook it. She was telling us, add this, do this, and I just was totally blacked out. But I do remember her crying with me about our cat that died, and so other than the pictures from that day, I don't remember how to do it. But thankfully, I learned from Robert Melvidoff Sr., who prepares it the exact same way as she does. So I'm very grateful for that. I learned how to cook it in the same way that my grandmother does, and knowing that it's not super modern, like they don't add a bunch of stuff to it. It's like onions, salt, pepper, and the meat and flour for gravy. Like that's kind of the basics. It's not super jazzed up, and that's the way that I like it. My family likes it. So at this point, you know, it's off the field, ready to be cut apart. Obviously there's grass, or depending on the location, there's lots of sand on it. So part of it is removing all the grass. And what I would love for Janelle and Kyla to do is, when I get to that point, is cutting the fat off. So what she taught me to do is to also cut the fat off, because that also makes it easier come time for cooking. I was not taught how to do anything with the hinds, so I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I would anticipate you can cut off as much as the fat and find meat, if any, and separate it or put it in like stew, or you could even put it in soup, I'm sure, but I don't have knowledge on that.
I'm gonna get them cardboard to do it on either side.
So, of course, after it leaves the field, it starts to get a little cold and a little rigor, so it's harder to maneuver. But if I was on the field, I would have separated this all the way. I think there's some poop on it. Another part of this process was learning it here in Amekula with my gram on this table behind me. And with Caitlin, who's standing there, and she would stand at the side of the table, point, and tell us what to do and where to cut. And also being someone that teaches other people, it's really hard to explain how to hold your knife, how to do any of this. So props to her for doing that. Because even me trying to show, you know, my 9-year-old brother how to cut a seal, how to angle a knife, it's all about the angles and the joints. So that's kind of, you just wiggle around and hope for the best. So I just pull apart, you know, the ribs from the spine. Of course, it's always hard. I'm pretty sure my gram could do this without any effort, but it's always something I used to have to ask for help with before I got to this point. So at a harvest, I would get to this point and ask, yeah, Greg, Juan, Dieter, Jigs, Neon, anybody, can you cut the ribs off for me? Because it was too hard for me, or I just didn't know the angles or which bones, and I was like worried about, you know, sawing through bones and having tiny shards all over, which I think to an extent you can't really avoid. So just finding, like I said, the right angle to get through while I was working and attending the harvest, that I wasn't gonna have time to go home and shower and get all dolled up and smell, you know, clean or whatever. I was gonna be prepared to go back to work and continue to do my job. So what I learned was to dress properly, to get dirty on the outside and be able to remove everything and go straight to work. So on Wednesday, when John saw me leaving the house in slacks and a nice shirt, he was like, "Those are your sealing clothes?" I said, "These are my ready to go to work clothes. I'll wear gear over top and I'll be cleaned up and ready to go. I might have blood all over my arms and face, but that's what soap and water are for." So I'm prepared to go. My girls the same way. I brought them this morning to the harvest in their waterproof suits and boots, stripped them off and threw them into daycare. They were ready to go. So a lot of removing grass and fat. So I think I'll just cut off the shoulder, the scapula, and the forearm.
So tell us Grandma Graham's name and family connection to you.
Okay, my grandmother is Ludmilla Mandregan, Ludi. Her maiden name is Bordakovsky. she is my paternal grandmother to my dad, Macarius Mandregan Sr. She was born here, St. Tanach back in, I don't recall the year, and lived through August 24th, 2013. So she was born September 15th,
1925.
1925, and passed away August 24th of 2013. And you know, she lived through a lot of things here, being a slave of the government, a ward of the government, being someone who wasn't allowed to speak their language or likely do any of these things that she taught me to do with Seal as a young female during these times. And so I would like to think, and I also never talked to her about it, but I wish I did, about how she felt about not doing any of this as a female, because I definitely feel like I got the rough, tough piece from her, where if she can do anything, so can I. You know, any man can do this, so can I, which I know is, you know, can be a not so great mindset, but I think it is in the fact that I take pride that, you know, back in her day, my grandmother wasn't allowed to do this. She wasn't allowed to be at the harvest and doing these things, and then there came a point where she could. And then now, also me being a female out on the field, you know, skinning seals, sticking seals, skinning seals, gutting seals, things that weren't done by females in the past. So, like I said, she did that up until the year that she died, and I think that's super cool.
Do you remember any stories she told you about what she accomplished as a young woman growing here on the Naramich?
Gosh.
I feel like some things, like, I think she was like one of the first females to drive a
That's
vehicle.
exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, she was one of the first females to drive vehicles. Want to help me? Let me both beautiful. First, it'll be Janelle on the side. You're gonna just hold up and remove the fat from the meat, so you can like pull it to an extent. Not really. My arms are definitely weak from the harvest this morning, but just lift and cut. I guess there's only 2 knives, so just hold it up and just remove fat and try to keep it close to the meat as possible. So you see a tiny bit left on there. You don't want to remove the meat, you just want to remove the fat. As much as you can. I just realized I went through 2 knives. So yeah, that's one thing I could think of that I remember is her being one of the first female drivers up here. And of course you hear the stories of like, oh, she had a farm basically. She had goats, she had chickens, she had all these farm animals, she had a greenhouse, and like I said, just being younger and, you know, new to adulthood, and my values were different then, that I didn't ask questions I wished I did about, you know, those stories. She told me all kinds of stories all the time, but I can't say that I was in-depth listening, which also, you know, regretful about. But whatever I do have, which I feel like is hard to remember right now after the week I've just had work-wise, it's hard to remember. But what else?
What are your first memories of her in your childhood?
Seal meat pie. She was the only person that I would, or her seal meat pie is the only person that I would consume. It wasn't salted seal meat pie either. It was just seal without being salted, with rice and crust. So like roast beef pie basically, but with seal is my comparison, I guess. With veg all and mayo, of course, the classic, you know, side dish. And that she didn't waste food. She always found, you know, ways to cook it, prepare it, and eat leftovers. So you open her fridge and you see all the I can't believe it's not butter containers. And they definitely weren't butter, they were leftover food. And what else? She always had her boiled water that she would prepare and put in her cups and take with her. She didn't drink the water out of the faucets. She always boiled it. And I don't know if that's because of like the history of the water condition here prior. Just got splashed in the face. So I remember that. Always having a set of house slippers with her. Just even if she came up to my parents' house, she'd have a plastic bag with slippers in it or shoes that she'd wear inside and always leave with them. She should have just had a pair at every, had our house and her house, but that wasn't the way she lived.
You recall how she reheated food?
Yes, she didn't own a microwave, so she would heat everything up back on the stove or the oven. And I thought, just being a kid who was exposed to all, the modern things, American food, all the terrible food, chicken nuggets and everything you reheat in a microwave. She didn't have a microwave. So she obviously knew patience with reheating food in a different manner than within, a minute or two. What else? She also did this outside. So like I said, at a harvest, I or anybody else would bring her the seal at this point, and she would do this part. She would remove the rest of the ribs from the spine. She'd separate the scapula and the human forearm from the seal and pull it apart. So we have the chest piece, we have two slipotkin, scapula, the two parts that connect where the ribca is right here, which you're supposed to hear that click and separate. On the field is what I was taught. So you separate the shoulder, is our shoulder joint connected to the lapotkin, and then separated the ribs. And this is the part where you spend a lot of time removing the rest of the fat and the grass, any dirt if there's any. And like I was telling Janelle, you work to remove only fat and not the meat. And I'm sure it's totally like a preference of everybody if you would prefer more fat than not, or some stringy pieces that you'll encounter, and remove them. And a lot of, I was telling someone this morning, which is why my arms are so sore, is a lot of it is pulling, and just your knife kind of assists you. And then the next part I'll get to is basically separating the spine. And I think my grandma would tell me two or three spine pieces of the vertebrae, and you cut right in the middle. Like I said, but with the knives, if it's easier in the right spot, if it's harder, you're cutting in the wrong spot. So you cut in the joints, that's where it's the easier spot. And then you separate the ribs too, which I'll do. And what my grandma did was kind of score it in the middle to start, and then snap them in half to break them down, because either fitting them in a pot or fitting them in a bag for storage is kind of my understanding as to why you break them. But one year we were cutting seal here, and I was by myself. I can't remember where my grandma was and Caitlin was and you were, maybe prepping, I think, at the rec hall or something along those lines, and I was here by myself. And the sharpener that we had was, I think, from Eco, and you hold it like this, and you kind of just drag it across two blades to sharpen it, and it slipped, and I slid down 3 of my knuckles. And I remember calling my boss at the time, my aunt, to come get me to go to the clinic to get checked out to make sure I didn't need stitches. Wrapped them up and came back and finished up and was cooking. But I think it was either that day or later that week that I was we're standing right here, this table is right here, my grandma's at the end of it, and we're at the point where we'd scored the ribs and we're getting ready to break them, and I couldn't bend my 3 fingers, so I was struggling to try to snap the bones. She snatched them out of my hand, like, give me those, and she snapped them without any problem, and obviously I had an ailment setting me back from doing that, but I was like, I'm so weak. My grandmother just snatched those out of my hands and snapped them without any problem. But every time I do this and get to that point, I think of her. I cook and get, the ribs, I think of her. Because, it's like, give me that. And she snaps them without any problem. So that cracks me up all the time. Yeah, my grandma's tougher than me, even though I was a young punk at the time. Okay, and I think this is probably kind of one of the longer parts, is just removing all these excess pieces. I won't do a ton because it's not my seal, but I mean, maybe, like I said, it's personal preference. So I don't like a ton of fat on mine. I don't like super stringy pieces, but if I feel like this meat's gonna cook well, I'll keep it on. There's that.
Do you think Kuko would want some fresh meat as well to cook? Yeah. Should check with her, because then we can not freeze it and get it to her. She has certain parts. Can you go in the back and maybe call her and ask her?
Those other parts, like these.
Would she want ribs? Would she want lapatkin? Don't offer the spine, though. You already promised it to me.
What else? Can say how fast she could do this process, but I feel like it was probably faster than I can, even after, about 10 years of doing this myself.
Not wanting to distract you, but tell us about her, how many kids she had. Or you don't have to go through them, just go through them. Who are your aunties and uncles?
My aunties and uncles, Hetty Christensen, Linda Mandregan, Alice, well, they're all Mandregans, of course, Alice, Tink, Margie, Sophia Weeks, my Uncle Harry, yes. And then, of course, my dad being the baby. Or no, my Tink was with me. Matt Mandregan, Grace Mandregan. Those are my aunts. Their father was Tracy Mandregan, my grandfather, whom I never met. He died 2 years before I was born. I called him Pop. One thing I hold very near and dear was that, so I graduated high school in 2011, and I kind of feel like that was the year that I remember being super close with my gram. She called me to help her, I'd drive my mom's car, bring her to the store, bring her to the post office, clean something up for her, take her to other places, bring her up to our house, and so on. And in those couple of years before she died, she found me a safe space to share her struggles with her grandkids or her kids that she was going through. I don't know what about it was, for me to be that person. And it was super hard to see her super vulnerable, I think. I know that she was hurting, and it also instilled anger in me towards those family members that weren't considerate of her. So I was actually probably the last person she talked to before she died. Or no, she left a voicemail for me, so that was part of the struggle, was that hearing the hurt in her voice before she died. So I definitely cherish everything I've gotten from her and learned from her. And of course, being that safe space, despite it being hard, because I was like, I'm just a kid, even though I was technically a quote-unquote adult. But knowing that she could confide in me, it made me feel very good about our relationship.
I find it interesting that I was a connection as well between the two of you, to have played a role in having her as an elder that would boss me around to tell me what to do. And you are her granddaughter, but you are also my niece. And just having those kinds of family connections are the great thing about living here. And I feel like my connection between you two is like strong, or I wished I could have experienced that with you and Kuka. But it's doesn't take away, or there's no comparing. But I'm grateful to have experienced you as a niece and your own grandmother's relationship.
Too. Very grateful for that, and just, seeking out, helping me seek that out too, I think is very beneficial to me. And, learning, I think all of this is a part of our healing from our generation's traumas. So not knowing how to do this, or, it being basically forced on us, and we were taught differently. So to be given a knife at, how old was I, 15 or 16, and say, go learn this. That was the kick that was very helpful. Because I didn't have a choice, I was on the clock too. I had to go ask someone. That was a duty I was given at the time, but obviously was more than my job.
You respect your job?
No, because me just being, scared and embarrassed to ask for help. I mean, otherwise I don't know that I would have done it if I'd not been in that time, place, or position. And like worrying about being in the way, or someone not wanting to help me, and everybody was, that was never an issue. And so that's something I took from that too, is, it's a whole process in itself, and to see, the flow of things. You're a little hesitant to quote unquote get in the way or ask for assistance, but that's what everyone's literally there to do. No one has a problem with it. And so I learned from the guys, and it wasn't any females that I learned from, it was the guys I learned from growing up. And so I definitely carry some pride being one of the females that younger generations can learn from. Teaching Ethan, my youngest brother, when he was 9 years old, how to, stick a heart, skin a seal, where, it's probably pretty dangerous to give a 9-year-old a knife. But just trying to help everyone learn while they're young. And obviously I'm not very fluent in the language too, but when you're a kid growing up around it, some of the stuff you pick up and learn, like if my grandma said something to me, it's like, okay, I gotta go do something, I gotta stop or go or something, help. And I didn't retain it then, but now you can. And so this part of it, the language is a part of it, and I tell people, a lot of outsiders come in and ask questions, and I don't even have the answer to some of the history, but I share what I do know. My, attachment to our culture and our history is this piece of it, and finding pride in being able to help fill, an elder or just anybody's freezer, because some people don't know, most people don't know how to do this piece, and that's why I'm there. Mainly why I'm there is to do this part, to help get it to this point so everyone can get it in their freezers, on their stoves, and their ovens, and so on.
Did you want steel? Or is it
I think it's okay. Also, sharpening knives is not something I was super keen about growing up and doing this whole thing. So at a harvest, if my knife got dull, I had to go ask someone to sharpen my knife. It'd be my gram. My gram would sharpen a knife for me with her steel. It'd be Dito, it'd be Greg, it'd be Robert, Richard, Neon, anybody I saw that looked pretty profesh with the steel. Part of this process is getting cut at some point. Remember being 17 or 18 years old and handing my knife to Greg and asking him to sharpen it for me. He handed me his knife so I could keep cutting while he's sharpening and talking, and he had a long, thick blade. And he was talking, but he glanced down and he watched me, and I was cutting how I normally do, and he said, "Do long strokes, baby." And I did one long stroke, and it went through the pelt and into my knuckle. I didn't say anything to anyone. I just handed the knife to someone and walked away and got it cleaned up, got to the clinic and got stitches, and he felt so bad. He thought it was his fault. I was like, "No, it was mine."
No wonder you work in the clinic. Might as well work in the clinic.
Then I'm like, no one get hurt. No one get cut.
I'm really grateful for those experiences that you shared, and like how, you know, your grandmother shared difficult situations with you, and like, you know, you are a healer and you carry medicine, and you are on your path, I think, in offering this healing space the way you do, and I'm very grateful.
Very grateful for all of you. I don't like to be someone that says they should do this, anyone should do that, if I can't volunteer my time or do it myself, because, you know, shoulda, coulda, woulda, do it yourself if you can't, you know, or instead of complaining. So I always like commend all of you for putting in this effort to revitalize our language, to keep it going. I mean, whatever I know is because of you and Bird, Ethan, when he was growing up. Whatever he learned is what I learned at 13 through 18, basically. And so I took that and taught it to my children and have been teaching my children. So I commend all of you, because this is hard, and I couldn't imagine, you know, digging back and not being able to talk to people directly, and like listening to old recordings and picking up words and phrases and how they're used.
So what is your language use with Ana Kuchad, Mila Kuchad?
I laugh thinking about it just because it's a lot of commands, no stopping up and wait. With them being, you know, toddlers that are testing boundaries and learning safety, so that's a lot of what it is. But one of the eye-opening things for me is when my girls were 5 months old, I said, "Ukura," and one of them turned and looked at me in the face, and I was like, "Oh, you know what I'm saying!" And then them interacting, and they got older with other people in our family, and my mom was like, "Look, look," and they wouldn't look. I said to say "Ukura," and she said it, and they turned and looked. I was like, "Yes, success." So whatever, you know, phrases or commands that I know, I use with them. Of course, when they got access to preschool and other kids, they learn all the English words as you would expect. And even before they started preschool, I told their teacher, I was like, there's some words they don't know in English, and obviously they're going to learn while they're here, but if they're not listening to you and you're saying something, it could be because they don't know the English word. And then over time, in the last, you know, they had, like, I can't think, 5, 6, 7, 8 months in school, a lot of things like they say water, they say socks, which they didn't before. They only said tonga, they only said choki. But anything they say in English, and I know the word too, I say it, and so I love listening to them try to say it. And so one of them, with it being summer, is chichodnin, and Anna's like, chingning, like just mixes up words, but she tries. A lot of traveling, you know, we say ikachtada, but they've shortened it to their ability, and they say tada. And so everyone in our family knows what a tada is, because they talk about tadas, they love tadas. And then when we went to Anchorage last year and then this year, every single one that they saw, they screamed with excitement, "Tada! Look at the tada!" we had to look at every single one that they saw with them. So I think just phrases or words, I guess, for things, descriptions of things, and anything that you teach me that's new, like ananalago and yayalago, except they don't know, I don't know what it is, but they don't ever say, they don't say yayalago, they just say everyone is ananalago, and so they have different descriptions for them. So like Michael Buterin, their core memory is seeing him with a broken arm, and so they call him ananalago with a broken arm. And then Phil, ananalago too. And John W, ananalago, like no one is yayalago, they're all ananalago. Papas and kukas and yayas, they don't know uncle, they know auntie. Anything I know, I guess I try to get them to know too. And obviously I learn more as I go sometimes, or if I forget how to spell or pronounce something, I use the app, or I ask you. Here is separating the spine. You start the cut, and you can see the spinal cord in there. You try to keep it inside there, and then when you cook it, you do what you want with it. Slurp it out.
Loved the early last winter. Tiny.
Yeah, tiny. And buildings and places like this is Ananalagozawako. Kukazawako. They say awako, they don't say work. Lavka. I don't know.
When you were talking about learning English, that same, so with Dida Kucha, Cara's brother Ethan, when he was, after he was born, I decided he was going to be my, someone that I would practice the language on since I didn't have any grandkids. And so I was going to their house every day or every other day and when he was months old and walking around and identifying things for him in the language, and it helped me to speak it and tell him things. And then as he got older, I started to pick him up and take him to Stupamanala, Mary B's house, and hoping she would like talk to him or he would be exposed to it. We would come here and we would be doing crafts and he would be playing in here. And there was one time she was like, Newsnich, come in Newsnich. And he ran from in here, he was like 2 or 3, and took him off the windowsill and gave him to her. And this is what it was, she was looking for her scissors. And when I would go to her house, he would go, this, and make me name everybody's house. Mandregan Ula, Tulipop Ula. I would be driving fast and he thought it was so funny because I was like naming off houses. Lafka, Pislamula. But when he went to preschool, he would correct me when I would say Lafka and he would say, you mean store? You mean post office? You mean house? So it was interesting to experience that.
That heartbreak.
Yeah.
No.
It's like all that work.
I think that's the same thing for my girls. They're like, Tana. They do the same, one thing that they started doing, I can't remember where it might have been while we were in Anchorage, but I said, Newsnika, and I don't know how long after it was like, we've gone, we've done the deed and everything, and then he was like, Mom? And I don't think she said Newsnika super clearly, but she tried her best. She's like, bathroom? Or go pee? Yeah. And one thing they do too is work hard to pronounce words too, so we try and just like we're going back and forth trying to say words together. Which I'm grateful for. One thing Anna says is holy stalka. Holy stalka. It was holy stalka.
Holy stalker, the
Holy
Facebook
stalker.
walker.
separate the ribs. Oh, one thing I forgot, which isn't so much on this side, is it kind of carries over to one side more than the other, as you have more meat stick on there. You want to remove this fat and this like gland too. And then you could just see there's a little bit more meat on here, and cut it off like it's kind of a part of the chest meat.
Did you find that one?
This one.
Yeah.
It's a gland.
It filters like the wastes in your body kind of thing, so you consume whatever you consume, and your body works to filter through what's needed for growth and nutrients, and then gets rid of the waste. So
You have glands right in here, and sometimes when you rub them and you rub them towards your body, sometimes if it aches, you're kind of cleaning them. It aches to clean out
they
those
get like
glands.
inflamed or enlarged sometimes when you have like an infection, because your body is like working overload to get rid of the wastes and the infection and the sicknesses. One thing I like is that I know human anatomy and seal anatomy and physiology to an extent.
Let me tell you about somebody wanting my appendix.
It was me. My girls too, like the difference between them and me is they're being raised in a home where it's prepared, and I'm, grateful to give them that opportunity, but I'm super grateful is that they like it. So as soon as they were 6 months old and we started introducing solids food to them, probably closer to 1 year old actually, because we did the purees and whatever. But just being in the thick of toddlerhood and parenthood, and of course the P word, the pandemic, and not really being out with and doing this kind of stuff. Their papa, Robert, is the one that brought us isladin and soup and stuff, and so that was where they got their access, just, the classic giving a little baby a bone to chew on. They loved it. They love his seal soup, which he knows to make, especially when they're sick, and it helps. And teaching them how to get the spinal cord out of the vertebrae, which I'm trying so hard to keep inside. But they love soup, and his soup especially, but seal soup. So just in the last year, we were eating soup and the spinal cord was in there. I taught them, I said, here, take a rib. They wanted to do it themselves, so I taught them how to shove the rib in one end and push the spinal cord out to eat it. So they like spinal cord too, which I think kind of has a little more of a fishier taste than the meat.
Should I be doing this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just pull them out. I do like in twos or threes, depending on, so you could like separate this bigger one or this right here. And then after you get them separated, you'll kind of, like I said, make like a score to kind of give like a pre-break spot. And kind of hold it up too while you go, because you'll see the meat on the back. You try to keep attached to the rib as much as you can. So there'll be loose meat on the back, and then the meat that's like directly in between.
Nice. So like this floor.
Yeah, a little bit like that, and kind of just wherever, kind of in the middle, and then you'll try to snap them in half.
Okay.
After you get that all separated.
Is it hard?
No, it's hard when you have free bandaged knuckles. And so then you'll cut the rest, so you'll go ahead and fold it in half over your knife and cut the rest. So don't poke yourself, that's good enough. Just once
Okay.
you snap them, put the knife underneath like this and cut it, separate it.
I see.
I come from Bristol Bay, where like they do preschool as immersion in yoga. I almost wish they could do that here in UT.
I think we all do. That would be so nice.
Yeah.
I think the difficult part is like the different dialects, I think is the last I heard.
Yeah.
You don't have the number of fluent speakers they do.
Right. One thing I'm grateful for is like before I started them in preschool and telling the teacher, I was like, there's words that they're not going to understand from you in English. And she's like, tell me what they are and I'll talk to them. As much as she could, of course, but with other kids being around and not having the same knowledge that, you know, they want to do what other kids are doing. But at home, it's what we use. Woohoo! I didn't even know you were there.
What about Grandma Graham, and tell us about holidays.
Holidays. Oh, Christmas was, you know, American Christmas, is that the term? Christmas Eve, the 24th of December, she went all out. Like that was, we all went to her house after the Christmas program. She always had these little,
On this side.
I can't remember the word for them, petit fours? Or they're just the little cakes that always were decorated and said Merry Christmas on it. She got it every year. She likely ordered it out of a magazine because she didn't use a computer. So she figured it out to order it in time and get it for that. She would fix all the food and snacks and have us all over. And that was just the thing that we did after the Christmas program. And so that was always super nice. And for a handful of years after she died, I would go up to the graveyard after the Christmas program and see her grave.
Upside down cake.
Yeah. Upside down cake and jello. And have to take a group picture in front of her icons and her spread. Which is funny because my dad and most of my aunties, except my Auntie Linda, weren't like super fond about taking pictures. They were like shy about it.
Should I cut again?
It'd be a little harder. Those are kind of like the middle thicker ribs, and it's about 3 instead of 2, which is okay. Use those muscles. Use your woman's strength.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, you need to cut to that third rib too.
Yeah.
Might turn it
This one?
around, yeah. Or no, turn it the other way so you can get it on this side.
Underneath.
Yeah.
That.
Mhm.
I think whenever the summer season starts, the harvest starts, it's like it's a soreness you gotta work through. Being bent over, the whole backside of me is sore.
Is that fine?
That's fine.
And then
Oh my goodness.
if they're all broken, what you do is you'll fold it over the knife and cut the remainder.
Okay, folded in multiple places.
Do your best.
Okay.
That works.
Yeah.
And then now, once they're broken, fold it over the knife and you'll separate them.
I'm so hungry right now.
My arms and my hands are going to be sore and weak for the remainder of the day from just the few that are at the harvest and then this. So with holidays I got sidetracked. She always decorated her home in the colors of the season, so Christmas is red and green. Got pillow covers and couch covers and rugs and table mats and cups, which I inherited some of her, I inherited all of her silverware and her silverware tray and cups that have like trees and snowflakes and stuff on them.
Where did you take them to? To the house?
Both houses.
17?
Yeah, so when my dad was cleaning out her house, we got access to her pots and pans and cups and silverware and plates. I have like 20 plus pie pans that I haven't baked a single pie in yet because I don't know how to bake, maybe once or twice, but all of those I'm so grateful for. And like the silverware tray that was there, I have that up and all the silverware. And really grateful to have the pots and pans that all have Ludi M written on the bottom. So So
And where are they all now?
now in her home, that is now my home. By, you know, the grace of God, because it's kind of wild how that works. When my dad was, after she died, my dad was trying to figure out what to do. He called me and he asked me if I wanted to buy it, and I was like, I'm a broke college kid. There's no way I could afford to pay for it and fix it up. I said, your best bet is to sell it to the tribe for them to fix, and maybe later down the line I'll get to buy it. And it's pretty great how life works, because that's what happened. Or is happening. We're still moving, and I wondered how I was gonna feel actually moved in and it, you know, being her home and knowing that was where she died, but also that's where all the memories lived, and trying to figure out how I was gonna feel about it. But it also looks nothing like how it did before, because they refurbished everything. Redid all the floors, the toilet, the bathroom, the bedrooms, painted, closets and everything. I think this is good.
Put on this one. And do this one right close.
After my gram died and I was starting to get meat for my own freezers, which I never did till probably after she died, was having to ask my dad if he remembered how she cut things and how she did things. So I think part of it is my dad's best guess and what I know and what I can kind of remember from what she showed me. And so removing meat from the laqudax. And try, of course, to retain all the meat and not leave it on a bone.
Oh, good, because that's the one who cooked Lydia's.
Okay.
Laqudax.
And I always think the medical brain in me is like, this is probably easier with a scalpel. It's a lot of feeling where you're cutting to. Where the edges of the laqudax is, and one thing Caitlin and I worked so hard to do in cutting with my grandma is get it off in one piece, but that's not always.
It's tight.
Yeah.
Grandma Graham's musical abilities.
The accordion, the keyboard. She had a keyboard in her living room that, also being a young kid interested in other things, she taught me how to play, and you know, I learned songs and she made sure I knew how, and my Auntie Hetty did too. I did not retain it because I did not keep it. You don't use it, you lose it. And so, you know, when I was younger, my parents trying to support that too. I got access to a keyboard and would try, and then over time let it go. But yeah, she didn't teach me how to play the accordion that I know of. I think that probably was too much for my brain at the time. But this laqudax is like short on this edge. Or it doesn't feel rounded like it would be. It's like flat.
Can you do these?
Take this and separate these, yeah.
What kind of songs did she like to play?
Gosh. I don't even remember. Obviously songs I didn't know when I was a kid. But the thing she taught me is like, I know nothing music anymore.
There's a tear in my ear.
Yeah, probably was one of them. I don't know if it was learning it on an instrument or just learning the words, but of course the song Jesus loves me with I know. Because she was very religious too. So
I will have to sing.
yes.
Go ahead and cut. Okay. It's right here, good.
Usually do like 2 ribs.
Two.
So it's kind of weird because where it looks here versus where the knife is actually going to slide through. You just start up here, or you could even like stick halfway through and cut each direction.
Okay.
But it's ribs weird me out and how you try to cut them. It's like it doesn't line up even with, you know, pork or beef ribs.
They're not two-dimensional. I was looking at the, maybe a few weeks ago, all of the photographs of the rec hall, meal prep. So I want to put it all together and share that with you.
Yes, please. I have one picture that I think I found off of like Instagram that I posted years ago, and I put a heart emoji over my face because I was embarrassed of my face at the time, and so that's the only copy I have. And now as an older person, I'm like, that was so stupid. This is a picture of me with my grandmother, and you know, doing something cultural, and I don't have my own face in it, which isn't about me, but you know, it just makes it look stupid. So, being silly. I got the meat off the little pumpkin in one, which I love. I think I would freeze it. You could freeze it, or you know, freeze it like this, ready to go. But Lydia wants this.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's
I
pretty-
just
she
cut
wants
it
those
into
hot
chunks, like small squares. Another thing is the whole cooking process, I think, is pretty long, because if it's not separated and you're prepping for cooking, like, you could probably cut it down into these pieces and then, you know, thaw it and go. But the way that I do it is like remove it from the bone and then freeze it till I'm ready to cook. One thing my grandma always did, which I do now, even with my siblings, but you know how I think everyone, they say it's age, but I'm not gonna say that because I'm only 30. But you name everyone before the actual person. So it was Deborah, Kayla, Cara, and it was like she'd say it with irritation because she didn't get it right the first time. And then another thing with that is whenever you called her house phone, she didn't answer it. She waited for her answering machine to hear who it was and decide if she wanted to answer the phone or not. And so I'd call and I'd say, "This is Cara, not Deborah." And she'd answer the phone and wait for her to answer. Deborah, Kayla, Cara. And she's irritated with herself at that point because she didn't get it right.
And we had to have a knock.
Yeah,
To
I
go.
forgot about that.
5 knocks, was it?
I don't remember. She
Knock
wouldn't
a certain
answer the
amount of
door.
times.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
she'd wait until she figured out who it was. That's smart.
Security
I wanted
culture.
to do that when I went to her house and she had passed, to knock on the door the number of times.
Mhm. I forgot about that.
So one of the things that I hold to this day still is we all cheat our seat belts here. We
Mm-hmm.
buckle them up and don't use them, which I did as well. And one time I had not cheated the seat belt when I went to pick her up because I had a tall person sit in it before her. And I went and helped her into my truck. And I said, oh no, I gotta put the seat belt on you. I forgot to cheat it before you sat down. And she goes, oh, that's okay. Like, we shouldn't, we should all wear our seat belts in here anyway. It's not like we have a doctor in every corner. And after that, I always wear my seat belt. And folks that get in my vehicle, they know they have to wear their seat belt. And I've just kept it that way ever since then.
And my dad does the same thing, however, so he puts his own seatbelt on, but he's got his passenger side clip. So with my gram, like I said, being very religious, a woman of God, she read the Bible every day and she spoke about God all the time. And I've also inherited some of her icons, some of them, one of them being gifted from Papa too. It's from Reverend Michael Lestenkoff and family to Ludmilla Mandregan and family, which is super cool. My dad's, taken on from her too, is reading the Bible every morning before he does anything, and it's her Bible that he keeps in a Ziploc bag, which I love. Margarita. Who wants to read?
I wonder if she would want to.
It's basically fat. It's only fat. I mean, there's like that a bite of meat. This isn't related to my gram, but what I learned from her, obviously in a way, but like I said, I learned from her initially how to cook and didn't retain it, and then had to be re-taught by Robert Sr. And what he taught me was cook the meat like if you're doing stewed meat, Isalaven. Do how you do with the meat, but keep the ritka in a bowl or in a boiling pot of water separately, and you boil it like on a low boil with like some pepper and water. Boil it on the low until you're ready to start making your gravy. And then you add it in, otherwise everything's gonna taste like that ritka, and if you don't eat it, you don't want the rest of your food to taste like it. And, one of the years I brought meat out with me to school at UVA and had it in my freezer. I was cooking it, and John Wayne, me, and our younger brothers, Robert Jr. and Kirk, were there too, and I was planning to cook it for, I don't know if it was an occasion or just to eat it, and I knew John didn't eat it, and I knew Kirk wouldn't eat it, and I wouldn't eat it, and I asked Robert Jr., I said, do you eat ritka? And he's like, yeah, I eat ritka. I was like, okay, I'll fix it, and how your dad taught me and whatever, and it came time to dish up and eat, and he was eating it, he's like, not a lot of meat on ritka. I was like, there isn't any at all, I can't eat food. And he's like, oh, I didn't know. I was like, okay, that's why I specifically asked you if you wanted it. You know who wants this piece? I think of that every time I cook ritka. My dad will eat it, so I'll cook it for my dad, otherwise I don't eat it. I want to say separate these two, but I want to cut it down for someone. Okay. This one, if you want to try, you girls can just work to cut the meat off of the bones, which is like the fat. You just hold it up and try to get as close to the bones as you can. There's two of them in here. There's a joint in here.
Is the ritka?
Yeah. One of them has more fat than the others, but you could go ahead and just stick your knife through that joint and separate them, and then just remove meat from it. And then here's also a chunk of meat that you cut down, or however you want to consume it.
What's this here?
There's a chunk of the pocket. I started cutting, and I was like, wait, I won't separate it.
Over here, I like super.
This one too. This is
It's,
meat for like there's like slices and shards of bone that you remove as you see them, and I think part of soaking it makes a difference. So what my grandma did was always soaked her meat for at least 24 hours before she cooked it, and it gets rid of a lot of blood in the game. And so that was part of the duties, was before we cooked it was taking the duty to come here to Amikula, come in and swap out the water on the meat like at least 3 times is what I remember being told. So coming here after hours and changing out the water. My dad said I think sometimes she would use vinegar to soak it, and you can tell the difference between soaked and, you know, cooked same day. And I'll eat it either way, but some people I think like if outsiders try it, they would be like, oh, that's way too gamey on the days that it's cooked straight out versus if it wasn't. So that's something I do too as part of the process. You know, it starts the day before at the least, as you put it in water and keep it cold, obviously for safety, and soak it, change out the water, and it's a minimum of 3, but of course if you could do it more than that, I would. Soak it and then cut it down. And so like if I pulled it out of my freezer, thawed it and soaked it, I would remove it from the lapotkin and then cut it into like squares, little cubes or whatever, and then leave the ribs as they are. Brown the meat, just like I said, Robert did the same way my grandma did, would brown the meat with butter and onions. Brown it on a higher temperature, add your seasonings and leave it like that, and then after, I don't know the time because I have it in a note written on my phone, locked note in my phone, how long to leave it like that, and then you lower the temp and cook it for like almost an hour, and then make gravy out of with it. Serve it up. I could probably figure out how to make like seal meat pie. Pie ground, huh? You think? Do you remember?
I don't know if I ever had her seal meat pie. I think I've had some neon made.
Which is salted, right? Or
They
no,
do
they
it
don't do
unsalted
it salted.
too,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
What are your, how do you plan to, are we gonna see you with Anna Kuchab and Mila Kuchab? Can you both model be twins right now?
What are you doing, Mom?
Fighting. I want to do that part. No, I want to do that part. Yes, so you have knives in your hand. Knock it off. Fine. Part of it is introducing them, of course, at a young age. Like, yeah, last year they were 3, and I was like questioning, like, is it too soon? Is this going to traumatize them? I don't know what, because we'd obviously been through a lot in that last year, and I was scared. So I waited till home we're gone, and I told John, I said, I want to bring them on home we're gone. You're gonna have to watch them because I'm gonna be busy out the field, like that's my thing, you know. And he was hyping me up, and he's like, your mom's the best at one out there, you'll see how fast she is, and yada yada yada. She's like just the rest of the guys and stuff. And they were watching, and they were smaller and didn't talk obviously as much as they do now, but they watched me, they saw the blood on my face and my hands, and they were like, okay, I can still touch you after. And once I was dried and cleaned up and offered to let them touch, and they're like, no. But they talked about it for like weeks after. Seal harvest? Is there seal harvest? Blood? Blood? They really enunciate. Kolistaka blood, ata blood. And of course for them, like I haven't like clearly identified ata, kolistaka, laqudax and stuff. It's all of them right now. It just depends on the moment. So they really focused on it. So I knew I was like, next year we're gonna go more than once and let them see it more than once. And so Wednesday or Tuesday night, I told them, first we were in Anchorage, and I was like, we gotta get new suits. The other ones are too small for the seal harvest, so we gotta get new suits. And we did that, got them these waterproof tuffo suits that they could wear, that they wore last year, but the other ones are too small. So that's where the talk started. It's like, we gotta make sure they get home for the seal harvest. And Wednesday, got him up early. I said, "You can go to the seal harvest." "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the seal harvest," and took them to Malwoko to check in, and then found out that there wasn't one, so we waited till 9 for daycare. But they're like, "How come there's no seal harvest? Why are there no seal harvest?" And trying to explain to them orders and people and so on and how it works. And then came time to today, and they like daycare, so they were kind of a little bummed to not go to daycare. But so I was like, "We're gonna go to Malwoko and check in, and then we're gonna go to the seal harvest." And we were sitting outside the office, and "Why are we not going yet? Why are we taking so long?" I was like, "I know, it's a lot of waiting, unfortunately." And even me's like, "Come on, it's almost 9 o'clock, we haven't gone yet, and why are we not going? And where's the holy staka?" Holy staka. Anna says holy staka, Mila says holy staka. And so we got out there, and I was like, "Come on, come on, come on, they're gonna get started." So I rushed them to put their suits on, and Rory helped me get the other one on. I was like, "Let's go, let's go." And had little rubber gloves for them. And I said, "I have them here, I don't have time to help you right now, but we'll put them on when you're ready to touch." And so they stayed by some of the older kids while I started. And once things settled down, I brought them over, and they were looking in. Aaron actually took some pictures with them standing behind me because I brought him over. I said, "Watch me do this." And I think I was gutting it at that point, and Mila looks concerned and Anna looks curious about what's happening. But Mila was the first one to say, "Can I touch the blood?" And so I put the gloves on, and she just like barely touches it, and that was it. Just like, "Take it off now." And I was like, "No, leave it on in case you want to somewhere." "No, take it off now." I was like, "Okay." I had to change my gloves again and take them off, and then we're getting ready to go, and I was like, "I want to touch the blood. I want to touch the blood." I was like, "We gotta go." And so I rushed. I was like, "Here, touch right there." And she touched with her one little finger, and I have pictures of her. She's like, and shows Aaron, and I'm just like, "Ah." And I was like, "More?" She's like, "No, that's it." And then I was like, Mila was like, "Are we gonna come back?" Because I had to bring the provider back to see patients, and I was like, "We could." And they're like, "I'm gonna go to daycare. I don't want to come back." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And it worked because I had to go to work. But they're like, "I just want to go to daycare. I don't want to go back." And like kind of felt like they weren't sure how to feel, if they wanted to keep going. It's like, "Okay, you don't want to go back ever again?" And they stopped and sat and like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, so we'll go back again sometime."
What is your first fascination with handling body parts at the harvest when you're little the same as everybody else's was?
Yeah.
What was it?
The lens out of the eyeball.
Right.
I wanted the lens out of it, which is, what I learned as I went to school, what the part was. And so everyone called it the pupil growing up, but it's not the pupil, it's the lens. And so getting that, finding someone to cut open an eyeball for you. And so part of it is I'm also contributing to the problem at an older age. Just give me your eyeball, cut it open for you, and show you this thing on the inside. This is where I'm at too. But
Did you I know we bought a bunch of, maybe it was after your time, a bunch of trays and let kids dissect eyeballs.
I think I was at some point involved in seeing that, I think.
Maybe you still have one of the boxes here that says biological something on it.
I think it was either part of our jobs at the time or a different time was helping with like Bering Sea Days and science camp. So cutting open halibut stomachs. I don't remember if we did seal stomachs, but thinking of that fascination too, and kind of just doing it personally and seeing what's inside. And I want to do that more often at a harvest, but also I'm like, I'm not contaminating my knife yet until I'm done. I'm explaining the process I explain it to all the medical providers because they kind of get fascinated with it, but just telling the provider today about disentanglement and what they do and stuff, and the things that we see. And I'll never forget, it was at Katovi one year. We were finished and we could see a seal that was like struggling, and it was a bigger one further over, and discovered it had a band and it like degloved it, so it was pretty far underneath, but there was like this much fur that was still over it, and it was all rotten basically. And they're like, "Cara, skin that seal." And I was like, okay, after they knocked it out. And so I did everything, and I was skinning it by hand because everything was put away, the nippers and everything were gone. It was so heavy. I started to gut it, and I could see spots all over the liver, and I was like, we can't give this to an elder. We can't put this in the food bank. I was like, this isn't safe. And I was like, I know enough to say that that's not healthy liver. It was like grayish, almost purple with spots on it. And someone with eco was like, oh, we'll give it to the food bank, we'll find it out. I was like, no, you can't do that. What if they get sick? We don't know what kind of sicknesses that this infection has caused. And I remember I was like, oh, I hope they're very cautious about that when, you know, these incidents happen. Or anybody, you know. That poor seal, though. It must stink. I almost getting it myself. I did.
Is there anyone that wants to take some of this home for food at home? And check with Google Marassi in a bit too.
I would have a birthday party to plan to host tomorrow. A month later birthday party. Alyssa and I were talking about before I came, saying her papa got a couple and they're gonna boil it. She said that's her favorite way. And her papa said, yeah, it's not even cooked or that's nothing not flavorful or something. Yeah.
Who is that?
Dennis. That's my favorite way. One of the jokes Neon Senior likes to say is whenever you cut and get it right is, I don't know what to say it, but knowing where all the joints are, being knowledgeable. But that's one thing is, like I said, trying to explain to people how to hold your knife and how to cut is hard without like, even while doing it, you can't really explain it. But one of the things is you know you're at where you're at in a joint when it's easy to cut.
Yeah.
So satisfying.
Yeah.
And it rolls.
Got it. Yep. Smooth. And then that cringy feeling of like sawing through a bone. I don't like that.
We have so one of the things that some early archaeologists, anthropologists that were not looking for it, but they were like fascinated by how many words in Inanga there that our people had for parts of the body. It was partially because of mummifying and the things that they performed. So there was this book they put together on the anatomy.
Wow.
I should not get it to you. Get a copy of it. But the interesting thing is they talked about the perception of healthcare, and that the first medicine, the belief of the Inangas, the first medicine is patience. Like, let your body first take some time to figure out where it's at. And if it's something, not like just because you have, maybe some folks now have a fever, they go to the clinic, something hurts, they go to the clinic, when really, it may not really be, not to discourage people from going to the clinic.
Yeah.
But patience is the first medicine of belief.
That makes sense. I definitely see that. One thing I have been going through with being a mom and being a health aide was I told a provider, I'm a mom, first time mom, no nothing there. I'm a health aide and no stuff there, but I don't know what I don't know and I don't know what I know at this point. So it's like when it comes to babies with fevers, like I know medically that it could be bad. As a mom, I don't know when to, intervene or not. So it's been a learning experience.
And then you have people look at you, you should know.
Yeah. I don't.
As a mom or a
Yeah.
healthcare provider.
One thing I love, like I said, when the girls get sick, Robert, or even Zeke, he'll be like, my grandbabies are sick, I gotta make whole stock of soup.
What's your favorite part for soup? Do you have a
I
favorite
never
part?
made soup, so I don't know how to make soup. I just know how to make isolada.
What about when you're going to be father-in-law?
The chunks of meat and the ribs. And I think just in the last, I don't know how many years, starting to eat the spinal cord too, because I could think of like when my grandma would make it. No, that part's not for me.
I was like,
I wouldn't eat it.
I was really watching you because that's what I want to taste.
Yeah, it tasted fishy to me. But you were walking out whenever I was seeing it, but just recently Robert made soup and I was showing the girls. I said, watch this, and I showed him how to poke the spinal cord out with a rib, and of course, I want to do it, I want to try. So I have videos of them getting the spinal cord out of the vertebrae. I think here's extra meat.
Sahoyan, right?
I don't know what to do with this. You know what people do with the hinds?
I do not.
Don't know.
You know, the other week I was showing how I had learned, or at least how I've been cutting. And I had played ball 2 nights that week and did the harvest. And so Garrett was telling me about, you know, the hinds there as the lumbar. And I cut it off and I didn't know what to do with it, so I was just gonna toss it. And then that whole day my lumbar was just killing me for the next week actually. I was like, did I curse myself?
Right.
Did you want to take that?
Regain what you've done.
I don't know.
I don't know what to do with it. I usually at the harvest take them off. And that's one thing is like if you're cutting for someone too, is like for elders, it's like you cut the way that you know and include everything that you can. But the way that I cut off the hinds, and sometimes it depends on how things are going, and I'm just like zooming through trying to help get things done. And then other times I'm like thinking about it, it's like, oh, maybe an elder wants the hinds, I'll leave them on. And it's a different way to cut them too. It's like you still remove the lower end, like the tail, what it looks like at the bottom of the spine, but keep the hinds, and so you have to cut up the sides of it, which I think is kind of weird, or it feels weird at the time. I think that's all of it.
The podkin anybody? Did you get a podkin with that?
I think I undercooked them a little bit.
Dance fans.
Try those. Toothnolig.
Huh?
Try make those and just the pot.
Do you want to take it?
How long?
Yeah, I forgot what I was doing. Yeah, it kept grabbing. It's like, oh yeah.
You guys know that, huh?
The seal stick.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy's big.
Peter Pixel seal stick.
This one with soup or
Yeah.
not.
Well, let's put it in a separate thing.
There's one boilable popkin, so that they're not when you eat them.
I like overcooked mine before. Kind of fell apart, but
Did
What's
my,
that?
the pot.
did my gram cook hard something like that you can remember?
She would put it in her when she baked everything. Kidneys, the flipper. Oh no, that was laqudax. I think had everything in it. I don't know that she did.
Because I didn't learn that, and I only eat it when you're filming it. Otherwise, I'm like, here, take it. Because I don't want to ruin it for myself. I don't want to mess it up and overcook it or undercook it.
This morning I traded 2 flippers for liver and heart. I forgot to ask you, you were way out there being Chesapeake, you're sneaking anyway, but that was like, you cut off the, I don't know if it was those flippers, you cut off the flippers, not the bottom. You bumped heads. They're like,
Literally.
oh. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
And then, yes, and no bones are just scraps.
Yeah, we have some, let's just scrap them. I don't think anybody's gonna want to. How'd that feel?
Good.
Was that your first one for the season? That you
Yeah.
prep for consumption?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't yet. I'm hoping next weekend I can. You know,
Yeah.
God willing, it all works out because that's my only opportunity.
Right, yeah. Cool.
Hoping. It's just the whole process of prepping after. Like, it's easy on the field to put it in a bag and go. It's this part that's more consuming and separating it.
We were talking about wanting to sing for if we la cuchara and on a cuchara over here. And I'm glad we got it in Wayama.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about how you would come here and sing with us.
Oh,
And
at the break hours.
yes.
So I don't even remember what started it, but I remember encouraging everyone to go. Like Jules, Daria, and I. That was like our wellness time. So something that our organization does is offers wellness hours where they encourage you to go do something for your well-being. And that was our time as we would come here, or I would go sealing. And it was singing, and that was like what soothed our souls and does soothe our souls. And then when, you know, the pandemic happened, of course, that went away and I missed it. I remember, I think one of the last times was February 7th, and I wasn't super pregnant, but I was pregnant enough to run out of air while we were singing, standing here and singing. Blacked it out. But yeah, so Ian was, no. I don't know, but that was, you know, that's what I needed, and it feels good still to do it, and just, you know, knowing that those are more words and sayings that I don't know how to otherwise. And so really enjoying that, and then also being super shy in the beginning, and like, I was like, I don't know how to sing, I don't know how to hold a tune or hear a tune. I still don't, but I just try my best. And then, you know, feeling the confidence from here and you all being a safe space to even make an attempt, I think was helpful for me to learn and feel comfortable and sing. And so even when you all are performing and singing, I'm in the back like trying to raise my voice and sing, but I'm singing. I don't know how to be loud and sing, but I can't say that I can sing well either. But also thinking about, we were singing, I think it was when I was pregnant, and the song, which I don't know the name of it, but the really long one that we get to the end and we're all bobbing our heads and getting closer. Yeah.
Beatitudes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that one. You're like, you turned around and you're like, you sounded like my mom. Or something along those lines, whatever I was singing. You sounded like Kuka.
We have a new one of those. But I was the one who wrote that first poster. And I wrote that
Smaller.
everybody up to it.
Getting closer. And then the longest word, everyone's head bouncing and singing it. Teasing Daria about forgetting her glasses. I sang, so when I was pregnant, I played all our recordings that I took here while by my belly whenever I was pregnant and like getting ready, I would play them. And I have Amy Magogo too, and the day my girls were getting discharged from the hospital, John was running everything in and out of the hospital, getting things ready, and they were on the bed ready to feed, but we were like in this process of going, and I remember them both starting to cry really hard. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And I played that recording and they stopped and they were just like looking around, and I was like, holy cow, they know it, they remember it.
Cool.
And I'm singing it to them while they go to sleep for naps. But they love to sing, despite how shy and wild they act once they get comfortable, but they love to sing all day long. They sing what they're doing. They sing phrases of things that they hear, like, Mila caminando en Ganuta. There's parts of it that Mila will incorporate into songs, or Anna will incorporate different words and sayings, like, regularly into what they're doing. She's like, I'm doing this and doing that, and always singing it. And so sometimes I'll start singing, just like not putting attention on them, and they'll start to join me. And the other day, I can't remember, I think it was part of Sumam Nagongin, and I like asked it in a question to Anna, and she's like, no. Okay. It's fine. I was like, I can't remember what it was, but I ended in Uguta with a question. No. I was like, okay, not today. Love to sing. And I was really hopeful, after I got pregnant, that you were going to come here all the time for all the breaks. And obviously there's more opportunity now with things being different, but I'm making excuses, but I need to work on it more. But they love to talk about everyone. Asara George, I'll talk all day about Asara George. I'll say his name 100 times, but then when they see him, she's like, I like everyone's Asara to them, or Ananalago, Yayalago.
Jeez, thanks, Kachiko.
Thank you.
Yeah.